It is so cool. It is so fun. Yes, all of you can come. I'll give you the.
That's why I asked that, because everyone wants to know how they can help contribute.
I have 3 apps in the Android marketplace myself right now, but believe me, they're not that exciting. But but the point is, just to what you said, teaching that aspect of an attribute of the product that they have in their pocket, they've got in their backpack, and now they're empowered to customize it, tell their story, or market their idea is something that we're putting in their hands. And I think that that's really transformational and quite exciting for us. So we are doing that.
That is awesome.
Let me just tell you one other thing about
and then we'll go out.
Technology. So we just finished a film for Microsoft on the use of the Kinect machine to teach autistic kids. It was at the Lakeside Center for Autism in Redmond. It's staggering. The results are amazing because these kids are perfectly, intelligent. They just can't communicate to us. They can communicate perfectly to the machines. And so they're learning more, they're more social, they're able to interact with each other because these are activities that they can do jointly. And it was really remarkable, and I think that we're going to see technology increasingly as a tool to help improve education, not sort of for mainstream, but for all of these other students, where it permits us to customize the learning experience in a really, really dramatic way.
Awesome. So how about we open up to the audience? Perhaps you have some questions, some comments, responses to things that you heard or things that you spoke of during the turn and talk. It's our opportunity to hear from you. I know you had your hand up a couple of times.
What about, we talked about the aspect of failure, but what about timing? Because children are young, they don't have the wisdom, they don't have the life experience. How do you teach them? Because maybe you felt right now, or your work wasn't accepted in this time or this genre. You're like this famous artist who wasn't accepted. What's his name? Van Gogh, who cut himself or whatever. But wait. What about everything's immediate? But what about patience?
Well, you're talking to the wrong person.
Ollie, would you like to respond to that?
Immense amount of patience. I think it's an inherent part of teaching. And I work, again, with various ages. And again, I did speak about not necessarily thinking about failure, but thinking about process, thinking about patience. What are they succeeding in? What are they excited about? In terms of, lots of times I work with folks who haven't ever used a camera before. Students that, open up Final Cut Pro to edit and have never done that before. So I think just in terms of accessibility, and them able to communicate in this new way, I'm really excited for them. So yes, there's an immense amount of patience.
Right.
So let me, I don't mean to be totally facetious, but honestly, a big part of today, and somebody was talking about, everything has to be right now. Everybody has to understand opportunity cost, and this is something that I don't think kids learn maybe ever. And so we practice a discipline around here of failing fast. We don't ask that you fail, we don't expect you to fail, but what we do ask is that you understand that there are better uses of not only your time, but the resources and everything else. And so they need to be jealous of the scarcest resource is time. And they need to be jealous of that whole process and learn that management skill very early on, because it's a life skill. And that's one of the disciplines. So when you talk about patience to us, we spend a huge amount of time in the process, and believe me, we kick teachers out of here sometimes. It's the middle of the night and they're still here working with the students and things. One of the crimes of learning and teaching animation is you have to wait for this machine, so you have to have a very large coffee brewing capability, because you spend half your life waiting for the machine to render. We have huge farms here; it still takes forever. And then, if it didn't come out right, it's great. Let's wait another 7 hours. Make 3 tweaks and wait again. So we understand patience, but the real instruction is this idea that you've got a limited amount of time on this earth. You've got a limited time at this school, and so the idea to focus and prioritize everything you do is really, really critical.
And then also too, I was thinking about that question about in the work field or in the work world, I would say it's not necessarily about patience, more about allowing non-closure, because everything has to be turned in fast and created really fast, except for the answers. And a lot of times we have to do all this work and there are no answers. So just being okay with non-closure, that there are times in our lives or in school where you will not have any answers at all, and you have to sit and wait for them sometimes.
Or the idea, I think, sorry,
Yeah,
the
go
idea
ahead.
of maybe process as the art form.
Oh.
Hi, thanks.
Hi.
I'm just kind of curious because, I mean, just from one experience with failure, I think that's a really interesting word because I feel like art and failure just don't go together. There's this like really gray area. It's not like science and tons of backed up data saying that does not add up. It's sort of not quite. It's an interesting discussion point. But at the same time, I've used, for example, in Photoshop classes, exercises where students have to list their 100 mistakes before they can finish the course because they have to make those mistakes and kind of learn from it. So I feel like there's a learning tool there, but at the same time, in terms of production, I'm not sure how that quite fits in. And just in terms of getting concepts and getting the technology, I'm hearing a lot today about, obviously from Flashpoint I understand, about how people with technology and people inside of these circles are able to create and able to respond and communicate around art. But does that mean the discussion around people who don't have technology is gone? I'm really curious about that because I feel like that more and more might just be the case, and I'm kind of concerned about that.
Well, I mean, one of the reasons that this place looks as much like an art gallery as it does as a school is because we want to be sure that the students celebrate both analog excellence and everything digital as well. And it's intended to sort of stimulate and inspire them to perform. In the game space, we don't let them near the computer for 6 months or a year. We actually have them do things with dice and cards and everything else, because why would you spend 6 months coding something that was boring or lousy or not really valuable? So we don't think that the technology drives this thing. We think that what drives it is the creative process, and the technology is there to support it and not get in the way. And very often we'll take 3 steps back from some of these kids that have just created things that are just too sterile. And you know this if you read just in the last week a lot of stories about Pixar and whether Toy Story, Cars 2 was a failure or not, and these people are sort of dancing on the head of a pin in the precision of whether the car, the 4th car had a really great personality or just a mediocre personality. Who knows what this means? But the point is that they very clearly understand that it's still about story, it's still about expression. We have a terrible time in the film classes. Nobody wants to watch a 2-hour film. It's not fast enough for them. Clockwork Orange, wow, that's slow, So the idea that all this content is being shrunk in terms of the attention span and the ability to absorb it, you get into this loop, and it's like, who are you making the movies for? If the movies are for 14-year-old teenage boys, then having a fart or an explosion or a death every 30 seconds makes some sense. But if you're trying to do something broader than that, then it can't be an economic enterprise. It's an expression. It's a lot of other things. But that's way more challenging, is how are we going to get, and the beauty of the web and the beauty of things like, again, if you haven't seen Snag Films is something started by Ted Leonsis to create thousands of virtual screening rooms. So if you have a film and you want it to reach an audience, you can put it up there. They'll stream it for you, basically for free. If it's a doc about a certain charity, they'll let people contribute to the charity as all part of this process. But it's really scary right now to figure out when the commercial drivers are so disconnected from the aesthetics and the creative process where we're headed.
I have a question for you, Eileen. I'm a huge supporter of urban gateways, and one of the reasons I'm so passionate about it is I have young children, and I'm a big art supporter, and it's absolutely critical to me that my kids are taught and encouraged to be creative in the in the classroom especially. And that's, in my mind, not happening. And my question to you is, in your organizations and the other organizations that you partner with, do you see any movement in educating teachers and getting tools to teachers and demanding or requiring teachers to use digital media, to use the tools that are now available, to be creative in the classroom and to be inspirational to them with using these tools? And I'm thinking of the grade schools, because by the time you get to college or undergrad or high school, sometimes I personally think it's too late. So I would really like to see some accountability with the teachers in the classrooms to use the digital media technology and be creative. And I would curious of your perspective on that.
Well, that's a really great question for us because, in fact, what we have completed and announced in September are a series of grants that we call the Empowerment Grants. And they top out at about $10,000. But the whole point of them, a lot of times if you're a funder, you fund science education or health and wellness or literacy or something like that. Well, for us at the Motorola Mobility Foundation, we're not living in a vertical like that. Instead, the funding we're doing is a horizontal. So we're really looking at how does technology hit education? How does it hit arts and culture, disaster response, health and wellness? And so we are definitely doing that. What we're funding is bringing technology, but also the skills needed to use it into schools. Because otherwise you've got amazing doorstops. Some schools are full of technology that that nobody knows how to use. And so the grants weren't that large, but they really did, they have created those kinds of spaces for teachers. And we're doing it with, art museums as well as doing it, linking art museums with teachers for just those reasons. So I agree with you, and I think it can't happen without being quite intentional about it. It's another art form, quite frankly. And the use of technology in education, especially for arts education. So I'm totally with you, and that's something that we support.
Right.
The other thing that's going to take away, though, is there's
And
no
you should go after
accountability.
this.
One teacher in a school is amazing, and the other one doesn't do anything. And so there's a lack of accountability on what these teachers, no offense, Holly, but there's a lack of accountability for all the teachers in the school. And that's the impression I have based on my experience.
Right.
Well, it's certainly a challenge because of the way schools are organized. But a strategy that we've been attempting is to do a whole school-wide effort, so that at least if the school has created the case for us and they've got the kind of support and they're ready for that it's not going to be an isolated teacher, because I agree with you. And what we've also found out that there's such an appetite and thirst for this kind of information, because teachers want to do a good job, and they know the tools there, and in many cases they feel like they should be using it. So bringing in somebody who can help them do that is oftentimes really welcome.
Right. And then I'll say this, and then Ali will have to leave because he has a class this evening. And then, you sure, Jordan?
Was there one more question?
Yeah, go for it.
You sure you can stay?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm quick.
Because you only have 15 minutes, and then the whole class is
Yeah,
out.
it's kind of for you almost. We've been talking a lot about celebrating success as well, as kind of a counter to this failure idea. So we want to be able to do that responsibly and really have a clear idea and some kind of picture and guidance of what success looks like. So when we start with learners who are using technology in a way that may be considered off of the beaten path of what we're trying to impress upon youth, how can we use that and find that as a critical moment, as a teachable, relatable moment, right? And instead of questioning, appropriateness, move that to a place of this is how we can show success, right? What are the ways that you would say